Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Lavine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party, noted commentator, essayist, and attorney Eric Lavine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Joining us now is my good friend Paul Stone, a noted entrepreneur, somebody who created his own cryptocurrency backed by gold, a commentator who's been on many radio and TV shows talking about important economic and financial issues facing the United States. He wrote a book. It's called 1971. Now, I didn't know what the significance of 1971 was, Paul, until I started reading your book. And that's the year that Richard Nixon, President of the United States, took the United States off the gold standard. And the question I ask you is, why is that important? Why should anybody care? We've gone all these decades later not being on the gold standard. So what? What do you think?
Yeah. You know, you're right. It's just the first time, though, in human history, and if you think of money as energy for a minute, what does the energy in the gas tank in your car produce, right? Gets you to work, gets you to the grocery store, makes you portable, spend money where you go places. So what would if money was energy, what would that create? What would that support? Everything. And so if we oversupply the financial grid with too much energy, it's going to cause a lot of invention and investment, entrepreneurialism, but there's going to be an offset. It's going to cause inflation. Now, just one quick measurement, because I know we don't have a ton of time. But since 2010, corporate profits are up 350%. Nice. Commodity prices are up 400%. Wages are up 84%. That's evil. Because this is a country full of people who want to enjoy their time here. And their earnings are being swamped by the increases in the cost of living year after year after year. And the lunacy, Judge, is the government is paying bills with money that's not real. You can't make cotton candy out of thin air. Someone had to grow the sugar in Brazil, sugar cane. Someone had to eat while they were farming it. They burnt some diesel getting it to the market, and then they got it to America. Someone had to drive it to the fair, and then they put it in some machine. Someone had to make the machine. You can't make anything out of thin air, but your money is.
So let me ask you this question. In the book, you seem to have made three very important points. One is that because it's not backed by the gold standard, you have the destruction of the dollar. The severing of the dollar's link to gold is you have government which is now unshackled from fiscal discipline. Is that correct?
Yes, it's unrestrained from reality.
Okay. Another thing you talked about in the book is what you call the two-income trap. That people are working harder and harder with two people in a family working, and yet their standard of living is not nearly as good. Is there a linkage to that about the...
Absolutely. It's called inflation. So Nixon ends... Look how fast this happened, right? Nixon ends the gold standard in 71. Ronald Reagan is dealing with just throngs of women marching in D.C. wanting equal rights. What do they want the rights? They want equal pay. Suddenly they're in the workforce, and they're not getting paid as much as men. Why are they in the workforce? When since the Egyptians, they didn't choose to be once they got pregnant. They had the economic luxury to go home and be a mom. And on the gold standard, earnings grow way faster than the cost of living. So by the time you're 40, you're good. Lake cabin, couple vacations a year. Mom never had to work. Mom raised kids, just like all the other rest of the animal planet. They raise their babies until they don't need to be doing that anymore. You know, it used to take about, I'm probably a little fuzzy on this number, 100, 200 grand to raise a kid to 18 years old back in the 80s. Today, it's $500,000. That's what's killing America. That's what's killing the American family. And then to couple that, Judge, the corporations are complaining through their lobbyists to Washington saying, you know, it's getting really expensive to have all these American workers. Can we, like, set up a factory in China? Is that okay? Yeah, Clinton will make China favored trade nation status, which means there's no tariffs. So the American corporation shuts down the American factory, screws the American worker, sets up the factory in China, and brings the goods made here that we what? Buy with printed money.
And then another point, that this is just fascinating because most people, including yours truly, until I looked at your book, I didn't do that linkage between taking us off the gold standard. Now, another one, which I'm very concerned about, is the housing problem. That the kind of income you need to have to buy a house now, and with interest rates doing what they're doing, it's so hard for young people to get a house. Impossible. And they keep screaming about the affordability crisis. What are your thoughts about that?
What was the best thing about turning 16 years old?
Learning how to drive?
You got a driver's license. So you are now what? A lot more autonomous than you used to be. So what do you think it feels like if you could envision that you're going to get out of high school, maybe you'll go to college, you'll marry your girl, and you're going to buy a house? How good would that feel? You could see that was going to happen. You'd save for 2 years, you'd have a down payment, and you'd own the dirt you're sleeping over. How good would that feel?
So this combination...
That's also killing American. You can't, youth, 20 and 30-year-olds can't see themselves having what their parents had. They can definitely not see what their grandparents had.
Well, so let me ask you this question.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So let's assume, for the purpose of discussion, that I agree with you 110%, and that this taking us off the gold standard has caused these problems, that this is the proximate cause of all of these problems, Paul. What do we do now, since we're off the gold standard?
So the beauty is there's two things. One, you can stop thinking the government is going to create a solution, because all central governments create the problems. So now we can take our personal power back. Our awareness can start focusing on what we're going to do, that life's happening where our feet are, and no longer ever think the government's going to create the solution. So the beauty of what God made, or if we walked out of a primordial soup a million years ago and humans were created, whatever it was, we are endowed with magic, brilliance, and dynamic thinking. We don't need an instruction manual. We certainly don't need anything coming out of the government to tell us how to make a life happen. If there were life advisors, would you hire them to advise you, Judge?
At this point in my life, I'm not asking any advice from anybody.
So the solution
Except, of course, Jesse and Eric.
Whatever we focus on grows. Right? Whatever we focus on grows. So as soon as we understand that they're creating this financial wind that's blowing in most people's faces, certainly blowing at Elon Musk's back and Larry Ellison, they're worth $500 billion now, blowing at their backs. But for 70% of the country, Judge, it's blowing in their face. And the minute we start thinking, oh, I'll just get off this financial gerbil wheel where I hope my earnings someday magically overwhelms my bills. I might go move to Tennessee. They have the greatest ratio of earnings to the cost of living in the country. So all I need is new ideas. That's all the magic of a human being needs is awareness, and it'll start self-correcting. Because the number one carrot it's going to chase is peace of mind. And if you're going to get that in Tennessee, guess where people are going to start moving?
Tennessee it is. Eric.
Anyone else?
Eric.
I can go all day.
Well, unfortunately, WABC does have limits.
I know.
They have to keep me alive to the 5 o'clock show. All right. Eric, your turn.
Sounds like the MAGA movement.
Yeah, MAGA has tapped into this for sure.
Coalition.
Bring the jobs back. Bring the town pride back. You know, when I went to high school, we were proud to be Hornets, right? And in that town, they made stuff. Now, I caught the tail end of this America. I was born in 1970. But for the people before that, right, who cares if the factory owner gets a new Cadillac every year and I drive a beat-up old truck? I'm proud because I'm making something I see on a shelf or on the streets in my country. And my earnings overwhelmed my bills. I had peace of mind all the way back to the Egyptians. All we ever dealt with was the temporary warring king or the temporary plague, the temporary flood or drought. But we were all in that together, and we knew what our temporary misery was coming from, and we would overcome it. You can't overcome the government printing press. They're literally paying their bills with money that comes from Microsoft Excel. And they cause inflation. And they cause commodity prices to be up 400% over the last 15 years. Wages are up 80%. Now you got 70% of the country want bill to pay late this month. MAGA gets that. And that's why the swing states said, okay, we'll give you a shot. You're talking about breaking stuff. You're talking about changing the routines. We'll give you a shot. But I would go a very harsh step. I would say to all American corporations, you have 1 year to quit making anything outside of this country that you're going to sell here. You have 1 year. If you go bankrupt, I don't care. Because we're not going to print this money anymore, and we're not going to serve the government's needs by executing the needs of the people who live here.
Whoa. Jesse, your turn.
Paul, thank you for your passion is amazing and the book you read. Maybe for, 1971, I think I was 5 years old. So many of our listeners probably want to take us back. What were the circumstances specifically that President Nixon was facing that he needed to take us off the gold standard? I know you mentioned inflation, but there were other circumstances involved there, and I think your book gets into it. If you could just elaborate on that.
Sure. Love this question. And we need to understand the source of everything. And a lot of the country and the anger, we're just treating symptoms. We got to go to the source, right? If I have a broken elbow, I can't run Bengay on it. That's not going to hit the source of my problem. So the source of the problem then is the same problem they have today. They don't have the money to pay their bills. So World War II ends. We're rebuilding Europe. European countries sent their gold to New York. And there's still like 6,700 tons of it in Manhattan. And when they did that, we could print a ton of money. But it wasn't unhealthy money because it was backed by gold. We could just make more of it because we had more gold. And we helped refinance Europe to rebuild after World War II. And Vietnam started, and we got to fight communism because the cowards didn't take out Stalin when they could. So now we got this big deal. So interest rates in 1960 are 1%. So you have no inflation. They're 5% in 1965. And Europe's like, you guys, the number one thing you export is inflation, and we're suffering here, so we want our gold back because you guys are cheating. And Nixon's like, if we have to give all that gold back, our dollar's going to collapse. I don't think I want to tell the truth, so I'm going to tell a lie. And he breaks into an episode, I believe it was an NBA basketball game, August 15th, 1971, for 3 minutes. and sing some song about how things are just going to be so much better. And that was it. They covered up a lie. We were printing money past the amount of ounces of gold in the vault, and that's all the gold standard means. When I was a kid, my go-kart had a governor on it, so it wouldn't go 50 miles an hour. That's all gold was. It just kept the financial world in a relationship with reality.
Well, let me switch gears. And Paul, please stay with us. To our listeners, the name of the book is 1971. It's by Paul Stone. It's a fascinating book. Obviously, listening to Paul, you know he's a very, very smart guy. A book worthy of your attention. It's already a national bestseller. Gentlemen, I want to switch gears. We have a few minutes left. Right now, as we speak, there's a deadlock going on between the Democrats and the Republicans on a continuing resolution, and the Democratic Party has blocked it because they need 60 votes to get through the United States Senate. The U.S. House of Representatives, under the courageous and brilliant leadership of Speaker Johnson, has gotten the bill through. The Democrats have supported continuing resolutions like this, in the last 3 or 4 times, the same exact bill. What this is all about, in my opinion, is they're trying to bail out the overspending that came with the Biden budget. And they're also trying to cover up for the failures of Obamacare. So now they want to do something that's really, to my mind, bizarre. They want to say to all these illegal aliens who came into our country, had no legal right to be here, should not be here in the first place, and should be out of this country, we're going to pick up your medical bills and we're going to cover it. That's what this fight is all about. So Schumer is protecting illegal aliens at the expense of American citizens and taxpayers. This is absolutely outrageous. In a great column by Kim Strassel in today's Wall Street Journal, she points out that the Republicans have to hold fast and stop the Democrats under Schumer's leadership from getting them to buy in to saving Obamacare. Obamacare was a fraud from beginning to end. You couldn't keep your own doctor. The costs went up. Even places where you could get up and get an insurance policy, doctors were fleeing because they couldn't make money. There are states where there's only one OBGYN doctor in the whole state. I think it's either Iowa or Kansas. I mean, these things are ridiculous. Obamacare is a colossal failure. This add-on that Schumer's trying to push through right now, as we speak, with the support of his Democratic caucus to block the 60 votes, means that we now have a so-called shutdown. Now, the good news is the shutdown is not of essential services because the president has the ability to discern what the essential services are. And that's very, very important to understand. The second thing is it gives Trump the opportunity to cut out wasteful spending for all the add-ons and the NGO funding and all the nonsensical agencies that get money for doing nothing. So, Eric, what are your thoughts about that?
So
2 minutes to go.
Last time we were on a shutdown cliff, Minority Leader Schumer voted to keep the government open. Voted to keep the government open. But this time, of course, he's standing and fighting. Why?
Politics.
Exactly. It is an acknowledgement that the Democratic Socialists of America now own the Democratic Party. There is no traditional Democratic Party anymore. So Schumer, to the extent that he wants to save himself politically, has been put into this corner of having to, quote unquote, fight. I'm going to fight. Even if I'm fighting for it makes no sense. Even if I'm fighting for socialism, even if I'm fighting for us to help Zoran Mamdani, I'm going to fight. So it's an acknowledgement that the Democratic Party is dead and the Democratic Socialists of America are on the rise. And this is only going to get worse and worse. It's going to pick up more and more momentum as time goes forward. And, Richard, I agree with you. What they want to achieve is crazy, but they should pass the continuing resolution, and then there could be negotiations between the president, the Republicans on the one hand, and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries on the other side.
Well,
I want to see if we can come to some agreement.
I want to conclude this week's show by thanking our good friend Paul Stone, the author of 1971, a best-selling book that tells the facts underlying the separation of our dollar from the gold standard and its inflationary costs, which has denied future generations of a real economic opportunity and put burdens on our society. And I submit, Jesse and Eric and Paul, if you have this continuing trend for socialism all across the United States, which is the danger with the Mondami victory, because then it becomes the model in city after city, state after state, you're going to have a country that's really divided between the people who reject socialism and the people who think it's the greatest thing in the world. But the one thing I will tell you about socialism, if you think you have economic problems without having a gold standard, just think about the economic problems you're going to have when the socialists take over this country and destroy the capitalist system. This has been Let the Record Show with our distinguished guest, Paul Stone, author of 1971, a best-selling book that has to be read to understand where we are today. Jesse Garcia, our good friend who is the vice chair of the state Republican Party and the county chair of the Suffolk Party, and our very good friend, Eric Lavine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. I want to thank you for listening. Look forward to being back with you next week on Let the Record Show. And as always, God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless America. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show with Judge Weinberg, Chairman Jesse Garcia, and Eric Lavine. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?